So today I would like to talk about the 64,000 phone calls that went unanswered from children that crossed the border with no guardian or parents whatsoever and were left in care of sponsors under the program of undocumented or unaccompanied children. Chuck Gracely has actually been sounding the alarm about this for a couple of years now. So when I started reading about this, I wanted to get as much information as possible because every news media was just talking about the same thing, which it was, 64,000 calls went unanswered in a hotline that needed help in any type of shape or form. And what was discovered from 2023 all the way to 2025 is that these phone calls, 64,000 of them were unanswered, ranging from stale bread to abuse. So now that this new administration ended up taking a second look at this, ended up finding out a lot more than just 64,000 calls unanswered. The child that was calling about abuse was actually rescued and the sponsor arrested. From this kid's testimony was that adult men were going to his room to touch him. And the article just goes on to talk about that there was only one person in charge of these phone calls, and they would only take 2 phone calls per day if they took any at all. But Chuck Gracely, you should go ahead and check everything he has done and sound alarm about this. But it's been confirmed in 2023, I believe, or 2024 of January, he actually wrote a letter to FBI and DHS. They didn't know what he had found, the evidence of a possible human trafficking that's been going on with these children. He also reported that there was evidence to indicate that these sponsors had a shady background, that the way things were being run during the Biden and Harris administration with HHS, they were unwilling, better said, to work with law enforcement, to work with DHS. So now it's been confirmed that a lot of the things that Chuck Gracely was talking about are true. One of them was the fact that HHS was unwilling to show biometric information about their sponsors to law enforcement, to DHS. And I not know what biometric was. I looked it up, and it's pretty much the process you got to go through if you're going to work as security, as any public servant. Fingerprints, background check, pictures, so on and so forth. Well, HHS was unwilling to share that information with DHS, with law enforcement officers. They were instructed not to do so by the Biden-Harris administration. They also discovered that HHS was directed not to cooperate with law enforcement. Chuck Gracely actually had whistleblowers within HHS exposing all of this. They were providing them with records, information that they themselves saw that there was something wrong. That I believe 31 kids were released to a sponsor, to an address that did not even exist. But when you start looking into Chuck Gracely's Republican from Iowa, if you start looking into everything he's been trying to do and how he was sounding the alarm about all this, it's crazy that an administration had a lot to do with the missing of these undocumented kids. They were directed by the Biden-Harris administration not to do all these things and not to share any information with law enforcement, not to cooperate with DHS. If you can go to his article and read it yourself, I know I'm missing so much stuff that he talked about and everything that's being confirmed and everything he was doing to sound the alarm, and it was going to deaf ears just because of the administration that was there before. So we're out here seeing these protests. Fight the oligarchy protest. No kings protest. Good trouble lives now or lives on protest. But I have not seen one protest for these children, for these lost 300 and something thousand children. Not one protest for them. And I ask myself, why isn't there no protest about these children? Why ain't nobody sounding the alarm or the outcry of these children? The news media will obviously bring it up, but it's not going to make it a consistent thing. Like they make everything else consistent to get the people divided, such as immigration. Every day we're seeing an individual getting arrested. Every day we're seeing ICE chasing people on the streets. But we don't see about these missing children every day. There's not much talk about these missing children every day and the abuse that they go through. There's not much talk every day about Chuck Grassley, how he actually pointed out all these things and showed evidence to the FBI, DHS about what was going on with these children and the possibility of human trafficking that they were going through. There's not much talk about that because that doesn't divide the people. I would like to say that will bring us together. So it's not in the best interest of the corporate media. It's not in the best interest of the politicians to bring this up, to talk about it every single day of the abuse these kids could have gone through, the negligence of these children that came over, not knowing this country, not knowing what was going to happen. Who knows what was going through their mind? Who knows what they were told before they got here? Yes, some have been rescued. Thousands of kids have been rescued, but still a lot of them missing. So what I encourage you guys to do is check out this guy's articles. Check out how much he was pushing the alarm for people to wake up, for Democrats, for the Republicans, for Congress, for law enforcement to wake up and say, there's something wrong going on here. HHS just did not want to cooperate with DHS. Did not want to cooperate with law enforcement. Didn't even want to cooperate with him when he was trying to actually ask for information. And it was all due to the Biden-Harris administration. Some of the whistleblowers that wanted it to expose this, they even said that some of the sponsors that they came across and actually handed kids to them, their addresses weren't accurate. They did not exist. They were lies. Some sponsors already had a couple of kids in one complex. They went back and tried to get more kids to a different address. HHS was aware that some of these sponsors had a shady background, that their information wasn't complete. And I'm sitting here thinking about this while I'm reading all this stuff, and adopting an animal, adopting a dog, takes way more paperwork, way more background check, way more protocols just to adopt an animal, to adopt a dog, than it took these sponsors to get these kids. Imagine that. We're living in the world where an animal will have absolute more right than a human being, than a child that's coming to this country unknown to this person, to this individual. Who knows what they were told? Who knows if they were even, who knows, maybe they might have been snatched up from the streets, from their parents, and just crossed over, telling them who knows what. We don't know any details like that. But what we do know, and what is coming out, is that Chuck Grassley actually had evidence and has been sounding the alarm since last year. There's more articles of him talking about all this. And now, this new administration comes in and is starting to figure things out. It's starting to expose everything that the last administration was trying to hide. So all these protests, supposedly for human right, and none for these kids, for these poor children. So ask, why isn't there no protest for children? Why isn't there no outcry for these missing children? I just wanted to share that with you guys, because if you are aware about the 64,000 unanswered calls from these undocumented children, you might not have known about the sponsors that were getting these children. You might not have known how HHS was unwilling to share any type of information with DHS. Were unwilling to share any type of information to law enforcement. We're unwilling to actually do proper checking of these sponsors. And that's something that needs to be looked into as well. So what is an NGO? An NGO is there supposedly to help the unfortunate. Some are nonprofit and some do get money from the government. So what am I trying to say in all of this? While we're out here divided, while we're out here bickering one another over race, over dictatorship, all this other little stuff, there's actually kids out here suffering. There's actually kids out here scared. Who knows? Maybe lost hope. The corporate media chooses not to talk about it. The politicians choose not to talk about it. But every day they will talk about the administration and how bad this administration is doing. Every day they will talk about how many other illegal immigrants were arrested. Every day they're going to talk about another family separated. But they're not going to talk about the kids. They're not going to tell you details about these kids that they rescued. They're not going to tell you details of how HHS handled this crisis of undocumented children that crossed over the border. They're not going to talk about any of that. They might bring it up, but that's it. It's a dead issue to them. They don't care. So if we're truly talking about protesting something, if we're truly talking about an outcry, what about these children? What about continuous protests for these children? What about continuous outcry? Why not keep talking about how HHS mishandled everything? Why not keep talking about how the Biden and Harris administration had a lot to do with this and directed HHS not to cooperate with law enforcement, not to share anything with law enforcement? That should be talked about every single day. What should be talked about is the people that are being arrested for these disgusting acts to children, the neglection of children. That should be the talk of every day. But yet we're talking about immigration. We're talking about the administration now. We're talking about what's dividing us. They talk about what divides us. And people out there protesting hard enough to start assaulting law enforcement agents just to protect illegal immigrants that we're starting to find out that have shady backgrounds, but nothing for these kids. So what are you truly protesting for? Because it ain't human rights. Because it seems like these kids have been forgotten and have no rights.